I'm Trench Reynolds. I write crime. This episode is being recorded on Valentine's Day, a day that, depending on your taste for history, means roses and candy hearts or blood on a garage floor in Chicago. February 14th, the date of the infamous St. Valentine's Day massacre in 1929, when 7 men were lined up and cut down in a hail of bullets in a city already drowning in them. It is also the anniversary of the 2018 shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 17 lives taken in a place that was supposed to be safe. But there's another February 14th incident that rarely gets mentioned anymore. Northern Illinois University. Back in 2008, the list of so-called major school shootings in America was still short enough to rattle off without losing your breath. There were Columbine, Red Lake, Virginia Tech, and then Northern Illinois University. At the time, NIU was one of the big ones. One of the names that stopped conversations. One of the places that would forever be followed by a date. Now, it's mostly a footnote. A casualty of the body count economy. In this episode, we're going back to 2008. Back to when February started feeling like the new April. It started the way these things often do, with confusion. 2 people wounded at Northern Illinois University. The shooter was allegedly a white male with a shotgun and a pistol. Reports said that he had been taken down. Details were scarce. Facts were slippery. It was the early hours of another American nightmare, and nobody knew yet how big it was going to be. CNN reported that the gunman was dead. What we didn't know at the time was whether police had shot him or whether he had taken what I call the coward's way out. Soon enough, we learned he had taken his own life. 5 people were dead, 16 others wounded. And then, the next day, the number climbed. A 6th student died from injuries sustained in the attack. The dead began to have names. Daniel Parmenter, Catalina Garcia, Ryan Mace, Juliana Gahant. Others would follow, lives reduced to press releases and candlelight vigils, and my apologies if I mispronounced anybody's name. The coroner spoke, the media circled, families grieved, and the gunman? At first he was nameless, just another former student. Then the name came out, Stephen Kazmierczak. He had been a graduate student in sociology and criminal justice. He co-authored a study on prison policy. He served as vice president of NIU's Academic Criminal Justice Association. He studied corrections, political violence, peace, and social justice. Some people said it was ironic. I did not. I didn't see irony. I saw a man who seemed to care more about criminals than victims. And in the end, he created his own victims. There were early reports that he had been off his meds. We didn't know which ones, just that he had stopped taking them. He carried the shotgun in a guitar case, like some bargain bin El Mariachi fantasy. And almost immediately, the usual suspects lined up to assign blame. It was the antidepressants, or the lack of them, or the movies, or the video games. Stephen Kazmierczak had a large tattoo on his back, the macabre doll from the horror movie Saw riding a tricycle through a pool of blood, bleeding cuts inked into the skin. You could almost hear the reactionary groups revving their engines. Blame the movie. Blame Hollywood. I said then what I still say now. Millions of people watch horror movies. 99.9% of them do not pick up a shotgun and walk into a lecture hall. But I also warned of something else. That subcultures form. That there are people who collect these tragedies like baseball cards. That study them. I called them mutants back then. More chud than X-Men. Today we'd call them Columbiners. Parts of the true crime community that romanticize killers instead of mourning victims. Media becomes ritual. Ritual becomes identity. We saw it with the movie Natural Born Killers and Columbine. We would probably see it again. Then there was the medication narrative. Kazmierczak's on-again, off-again girlfriend said he stopped taking antidepressants because they made him feel like a zombie. She said he wasn't acting erratically in the weeks before the shooting. He sent her 2 packages, textbooks, a goodbye note, a cell phone, then a holster and ammunition. He was tying up loose ends. I said at the time that feeling like a zombie was preferable to being a dead mass murderer. Crude, maybe, but bluntness has its place. And I meant something else too. If your meds make you feel wrong, don't just stop. Call your doctor, work the problem. It can take time to get the dosage right and the medication right. I know that from personal experience. Antidepressants have saved my life. That wasn't hyperbole then, and it isn't now. The New York Times ran an article suggesting Prozac likely played no role in the shooting. Kazmierczak had been off it for 3 days. Normally, Prozac doesn't leave your system that quickly. Most of the time, when patients on antidepressants have violent outbursts, it points to something deeper: schizophrenia, psychosis, an underlying condition untreated or poorly managed. I speculated that Kazmierczak might have been a paranoid schizophrenic. Then came another twist. He had reportedly been on Prozac, Xanax, and Ambien. I've had personal experience with Xanax. It makes me sleepy. Hardly the fuel for a killing spree. Ambien? I had seen what that drug could do. I had a family member who wandered in a stupor, awake but not really there. I wondered aloud whether Ambien could have been a factor. But I also said what mattered most. Anecdote is not proof. Then the autopsy report landed like a wet overcoat on a rainy night. Trace amounts of Xanax, a cold medicine, and nicotine. No Ambien. Well, that blew my Ambien theory to hell. I corrected myself publicly because that's what you do when the facts change. Then there were other details. The hard drive from his computer was missing. The SIM card from his cell phone was gone. He had covered his tracks. This wasn't the attention-seeking manifesto spectacle we saw at Virginia Tech. There was no package mailed to NBC. No theatrical attempt at immortality. For months, we did not know the motive. Then Esquire magazine dropped the other shoe. Kazmierczak had been fascinated with Cho Sung-Hui, the Virginia Tech shooter. He studied him, asked how someone could do it, how they could pull it off. Kazmierczak was just another copycat. The word copycat hung in the air like cigarette smoke in a backroom bar. Not just mental illness, not just despair, but contagion. The old script repeating itself. And through all of this, something else was happening. The media moved on. An op-ed from the student newspaper at San Jose State said what many were thinking, that 5 days after NIU, CNN cared more about satellites being shot down and Bill Clinton arguing with a heckler. At Virginia Tech, 32 were killed. At NIU, 5. In the post-Columbine era, the body count became media currency. 13 at Columbine, 32 at Virginia Tech, 5 at NIU. A brutal calculus. The higher the number, the longer the coverage. I said then that since Columbine, it had been all about body count. And I said something else. When one of these incidents happens, I cover it from start to finish. Not because I want to give the killer notoriety, but because the story doesn't end when the cameras leave. By late March of 2008, there were calls for a task force to study NIU's response, to comb through Kazmierczak's psychiatric history. I argued it would be a waste of time and money. Police were on the scene in under a minute. There was no prolonged standoff, no hours of chaos. He wasn't even a current student. How could anyone at NIU have known what he was planning? Sometimes there just aren't answers. Sometimes there isn't a memo you missed or a red flag that would have made everything clear in hindsight. Sometimes a man walks into a lecture hall with a shotgun and a guitar case and changes lives forever in under 5 minutes. It has been 18 years. Since 2018, the list of names has grown longer. Newtown, Umpqua, Parkland, Santa Fe, and Uvalde, and so many others that never broke through to the national consciousness. Northern Illinois University has faded from the public memory, but for the families, it never faded. For the students who were there, it never faded. For those of us who are watching it unfold in real time, refreshing pages, correcting names, revising theories, arguing with anti-medication crusaders and video game critics, it never faded. February 14th will always mean something different to them. Roses and chocolates on one side of the street, police tape on the other. This is Valentine's Day, and sometimes love letters get replaced with autopsy reports. Sometimes the headlines move on before the grief does. And sometimes, if you're paying attention, you realize that the forgotten ones are only forgotten by those who weren't there. Northern Illinois University was once one of the major school shootings in America. Now it's just a brief stop in a horrific timeline. But today, we remember. Not because of the killer, but because 5 students walked into class and never walked out again. And because even when the cameras pack up and the anchors change topics, their story is never really over. Thank you for listening. If you want to take a deeper dive on the stories that I've written over the years, I run a site called realcrime.net. I've been covering crime there for more than 25 years, dating back to when the internet felt less like a shopping mall and more like a dimly lit alley you weren't entirely sure you should walk down. More recently, I've been posting about the recent school shooting in Canada. I've also opened a new blog called Operation Ice Crime, where I've been detailing the abuses by ICE agents and the administration that spawned them. You can find a link to that blog in the description below. And if you'd like to support what I do, please support me at patreon.com/Trench Reynolds. Every contribution helps keep the lights on and the archives accessible. My thanks to patrons Mayor, Kelly, and Trish, and to everyone who signed up for the free tier as well. The interest and trust mean more than I can say without starting to feel awkward about it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Press whatever the platform is calling the shiny new button this week. As I've mentioned before, I'm strictly a desktop guy. Until next time, roses wilt, candy melts, but blood on Valentine's Day has a way of staining the calendar. I'm Trench Reynolds, and I write crime.